Today, we're diving into something that feels straight out of a sci-fi movie, but I promise you, it is happening right now.
I mean, think about it for a second. What if your computer, your phone, any device could know how you truly feel? And no, I'm not talking about it guessing from your emojis or your facial expression. I mean understanding your emotions directly from the source.
Because believe it or not, new AI is getting shockingly good at doing exactly that, decoding what we're feeling straight from our brainwaves. And a groundbreaking new model is achieving an accuracy that is, well, it's just astonishing. So let's break down how on earth this actually works. All right, so first things first. How do you even measure something as personal and messy as an emotion, objectively? Turns out the answer is in the electrical signals buzzing around inside our skulls. These signals, which we measure with something called an EEG, are a direct, unfiltered window into our emotional state. And here's the thing, you can fake a smile, but it is incredibly difficult to fake your brainwaves. But, and this is a really big but, there's a massive problem. They are just unbelievably complex and chaotic. Seriously, looking at raw EEG data is like trying to listen to one single conversation at a gigantic roaring party by just tuning into the sound of the whole room. It's a total jumble, a wall of noise from all over the brain firing at once. So how do you make sense of that? Well, to solve this puzzle, researchers had to completely change how they were thinking. They had to stop seeing the brain like a static picture and start seeing it for what it really is, a network. You see, a lot of traditional AI, like the kind that's so good at finding cats in your photos, is built to see the world in neat, tidy grids, just like the pixels in an image. These models are called convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, and they are brilliant at that one thing. But our brain, well, it's anything but a neat and tidy grid. And this image just nails that conceptual leap. The brain isn't a grid of pixels. It's this incredibly complex, dynamic web of connections. What matters isn't just what one single spot is doing. It's about how all the different spots are talking to each other. And this is where a totally different kind of AI comes into play, the Graph Convolutional Network, or GCN. It is literally designed to understand network data. It sees brain regions as nodes, kind of like cities on a map, and then it analyzes the edges, or the connections between them, to understand the whole picture. But okay, just seeing the brain as a network isn't quite enough. Emotions aren't a static photograph. They evolve, they change from moment to moment. And this is where the real breakthrough happens. So let me introduce you to the star of the show, the DTC-GCN. I know, it's a mouthful. But what this model does is pretty revolutionary. It doesn't just take a snapshot of the brain's network. It watches the whole movie, seeing how the network changes and, this is key, how one part causes changes in another part over time. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers themselves put it perfectly. Emotions fluctuate. They're a process. If your AI model isn't capturing those dependencies over time, how one brain state flows into the next, you're just going to get unreliable results. You're missing the whole story. So what's its secret sauce? You can think of it as a two-step process. First, it uses that GCN we just talked about to map out all the connections at one specific instant. But then, and this is the absolute game changer, it learns the causal relationships. It figures out how activity in the front of the brain right now might actually cause a change in another part of the brain a split second later. It's about cause and effect. And you can kind of see how it works here. The model chops up that continuous, messy EEG signal into these little windows of time. Then it analyzes them, not just by themselves, but in relation to each other, building this amazing map of how past brain states directly influence future ones. Okay, so the theory is really elegant. It sounds great on paper. But does it actually work in practice? Well, the results kind of speak for themselves. Get this. When they tested the DTC-GCN model on a standard emotion recognition dataset, it achieved an average accuracy of 98.48%. Just let that sink in for a moment. 98.48%. That is approaching perfection. We are talking near flawless identification of positive, neutral, and negative feelings just from brainwaves. And to put that number into perspective, just look at this comparison. It doesn't just squeak past the previous models. It takes a massive leap forward, jumping more than 3 full percentage points ahead of the very best model from just a year ago. In the world of AI research, that is a huge deal.
So you might be wondering, was all that complex causality stuff really necessary? The answer is a resounding yes. The researchers did something called an ablation study, which is a fancy way of saying they took the model apart to see which bits were most important. And the results are crystal clear. You take away that special causality module, the accuracy plummets by almost 6%. Every single piece of this new model is absolutely essential for its success. Okay, so a 98% accuracy score is incredible in a lab. But what does this actually mean for the real world, for you and me? Well, this is where it gets really mind-bending. The potential applications are just vast. Imagine mental health tools that give doctors objective data about a person's emotional state, or brain-computer interfaces that can adapt in real time to your mood, like if you're getting frustrated. We could have safer robots, empathetic AI tutors for our kids, or even just a profoundly deeper understanding of how our own brains work. And that's really the core of it all. This technology is moving us way beyond simply putting a label on an emotion, like happy or sad. For the very first time, we're not just reading the final product, we're getting to see the dynamic, causal dance of connections that actually builds that emotional state, moment by moment. Which, of course, brings us to a final and pretty critical question. As these incredible tools get more powerful and get closer to the very core of who we are entering a whole new world. What happens when our technology starts to understand our inner world, maybe even better than we understand it ourselves? It's definitely something to think about.